census is held every 10 years. It provides crucial information, enabling central government, local authorities and health trusts to plan and fund public services, ranging from hospitals to schools to housing and transport. For those of us from ethnic minority communities, it is even more important to have accurate data to ensure that any specialist requirements are addressed properly. For instance, we have seen during the pandemic how BAME communities have been disproportionately impacted, requiring health and social services to be adapted. Beyond any public services delivered either nationally or locally, the Census Survey also helps other non-government entities secure resources and make decisions. For example, charities and voluntary organisations often use it as evidence to obtain funding. It also helps private sector businesses to understand their customers better and decide where to open new outlets. The 2021 census will be held in England and Wales on Sunday, 21st March, and is organised by the independent Office for National Statistics. The census questionnaire can be completed online, and you should receive access details later this month. So please make sure you fully participate in this important civic duty. In a nutshell, help us help you. The census benefits us all. Thank you and warmest wishes to everyone.
The community through various leadership roles. His dedication to community work has resulted in increased awareness and recognitions of religious, social, cultural, and charitable issues of the Hindu community in the UK, and is often the first point of contact by various UK government departments and statutory authorities to advise them and consult on issues, legislations, and politics affecting the Hindu community. Sanjay Jagatia is also joined by Iftikhar Ganchi, who is the Community Advisor for Census 2021, Office for National Statistics, ONS for Leicester. Iftikhar will join Sanjay Jagatia for the questions and answers after the presentations. Thank you for joining today's Census 2021 information program, and we hope this will give you appropriate information and details to encourage others to fill the census form. Can I request Jagdish Bagin to try the...
A fairy book land of myths and veils, guarded by imposing castles, embodied by the crown. This tiny island that once ruled the world has had a complex relationship with India.
The Indian diaspora that makes an enormous contribution to Britain.
Indians are extremely good business people.
Indians has got a reputation in the UK for being successful, for studying, for being law-abiding.
We all came as a shopkeeper, and today we are hoteliers, manufacturers, in pharmacies, food. Indian diaspora has done very well.
The diaspora that have come from India into the United Kingdom have made a huge difference to this country. Quite literally, they've built cities with their hands, with their money, with their resources, with their talents and with their skills.
In sports, in business, in art, you name it, Indians are reaching the very top. And that glass ceiling has been absolutely shattered.
Food, fashion, sport, culture, and even language have only blossomed from the ebb and flow. The give and take that has marked this very special bond between India and the United Kingdom. Keeping these historic relations going are Britain's Indians. The tiny Indian diaspora in UK, just 3% of the population, have long punched much above their weight. Their colors shimmer through the land. Their flavors spice every aspect of life in this country that's become home. These people that have become family.
When I started this company, I got my MBE from the Queen. Therefore, it's important to remember that if you work hard in this country, you are recognized.
Beyond building empires, the diaspora has developed a talent for giving back.
I think the Indian community has achieved so much in a very short space of time because, one, this is a culture that is strong and productive. Secondly, because they've been dedicated, hard-working, they've not relied on benefits.
With an economy devastated by war, suffering the loss of a significant proportion of its population, Britain appealed to men and women from across the empire to come rebuild factories, restart industry, and reignite the economy.
Britain actively encouraged migration to Britain to help rebuild the country after the end of the Second World War. Also to recruit doctors and nurses for the newly founded NHS, which happened in 1948.
Their toil reshaped Britain, and their success helped build the path to migration for the next wave of Indian immigrants who came here via Africa.
The real change took place when the East African Indians came. They went into small businesses and then the children went into professions.
Thrown out of one country, determined to prove their worth in a new one, East African Indians worked long and hard, revolutionizing retail and offering much greater convenience to British consumers.
Well, thank you very, very much to Shreeji Dham Haveli and the Executive Committee for allowing us to actually come on today, myself and my colleague Iftikhar, to talk a little bit more about Census 2021, which is taking place on the 21st of March, which is a Sunday of this year. So we're about 4.5 weeks away from that. First of all, thank you, Praveen Bhai, also and Praful Bhai for contacting us, through our colleagues here in Coventry, who said, we really do need to do these Zoom calls with the Dham and the members that we have on there. So I just want to go through with you today a little bit more information about what the census is and what we are trying to do. So the sort of topics we'll really sort of concentrate is that why is the census important for the Hindu community, the Indian community, and why it's important for you to actually take part in this very, very important piece of work. So the census is a survey that takes place every 10 years, and everybody across the country, every household across the country has to take part in this. The census is important because it gives the best detailed information that we have about our society and our community right across the UK. The Office for National Statistics, ONS, is responsible for the census in England and Wales, and they make sure that they don't include any of the personal information that you may provide in the census data to be published when it's actually time to publish that and release it in the next 8 to 12 months when the actual data will be released. The information that we collect from the census from each and every household remains confidential for 100 years. So nobody can see names and identification of the person or persons who have actually filled out the census form. And that's by law. And it's ingrained in law that for 100 years, nobody actually sees that information. Names on the forms help us to actually make sure that we don't have double counting. And that's the reason why we ask you to actually put your name on the actual census form. Everybody in the entire England and Wales have to actually complete the census form, and it's a legal obligation since 1920. And failure to actually complete the census form can result in a fine of up to £1,000 and also a criminal record as well. So it's really, really important that everybody understands and realizes the importance of the census form. It's a 1 in a 10-year exercise, and everybody has to actually fill the form in. Why do we have the census? The census is there really because the information collected, it helps government, local authorities, and also charities and the public sector organizations decide how billions and billions of pounds of public funding is spent. And it gives us information such as how we can actually shape policy and legislation. This includes planning, housing, healthcare, also how the government and the local authorities can allocate resources for the community's needs, like yourselves, and also to plan and run services that take place in hospitals, schools, care homes, and more importantly as well, how to monitor equality so that we are all represented in whatever funding is available throughout the UK. The census information informs us and the decisions to how we can actually improve people's lives. So local authorities, city council, Leicester City Council, for example, and the government public bodies would use this. The information is used to develop local plans to better reflect the needs and identify any inequalities at a local level. So, my conversations with the committee just yesterday was that, how come we don't see some of the funding? Why don't we get some of the resources? Well, this census is there for us to determine the real need for the community. So it's really important that it's actually for the planning and development, public health and social care. So things like how to actually identify pockets of health deprivation, and also support future planning in hospitals, and also social care, elderly care, care homes, and that type of thing. Census information is also used for housing purposes as well, to try and decide if there are a lot of people moving into a particular city, how the government and the local authority can use that data to assess housing needs, and also to measure housing affordability as well. It's also used for census, is also used for information gathering, whether there is a need for more schools in our area. So wherever you may be living across the UK, if there is a need for more schools, this census data will determine whether more schools are required, and also faith schools. So, you've got some of the Hindu Indian faith schools, the Muslim schools, the Sikh schools. So this also helps to monitor where there is a particular need for more faith schools as well across the country, and to monitor the supply of teachers for the schools. Transport census information is used to find out if the more need for more car parks, as you've seen in most of the streets and roads across the country. They're very congested now, with people having 1, 2, 3 cars per family. So this census information will help local authorities decide whether there's a need for more car parks, widening of roads, road improvements, and also to actually plan and profile around the areas of transport change. So if there's a need for more bus services for particular routes as well. And finally, census information is used to understand ethnic diversity. Really, really key and important here, to ensure that resources are actually in place to make sure that all of our communities and our groups are treated equally, and we get a free share of equal funding that may be available from government as well as local authorities as well. Some essential information here. Census takes place on Sunday, the 21st of March, 2021. And for the first time this year, this is going to be what we call a digital first census. So that means people can go online and actually fill the census. It takes about 10 minutes for people to fill that form in. So it's a digital first, but those who don't have the experience and knowledge and the know-how how to do things digitally, you can also have a paper copy of the census form that can be sent to you as well. We at the Office for National Statistics are really focused in engaging with everybody, including underrepresented and also hard to reach groups, by providing them with guidance and support. And we have support and guidance in many languages and many formats as well. And one of the reasons why we're doing this Zoom call is to be able to reach out to the underrepresented and possibly the hard to reach communities as well, so that everybody knows about the census. Mentioned to you about the online census, very, very quick and easy. As you can see there on the right-hand side, you can use your mobile phone, your iPads, the laptops, computers, to be able to go in there and fill out the census information very quick and easy. And the good thing about the census, doing it online, is that you can start it, one day, and then a couple of days later, you can go back into it and finish it off. So you can actually pause at a certain question that you want, so you can go back to that at a later date. So it's really friendly and easy to use census online as well. We also have dedicated phone line, whereby anybody who needs any help in actually filling out the forms and any other general help at all about the census, we have a dedicated phone line which you can call, and it will help you actually help fill the census form in. These phone lines will be operated by staff speaking in Gujarati, Hindi, Punjabi, Bengali, Urdu, and various other languages, Polish and Romanian. Most languages are covered in this, in the actual dedicated phone line that you can actually call if you want to have some help to fill out the form. Just to show you what happened in 2011 when the last census happened. This is a snapshot by religion, and you'll see that the success rate of people who responded to actually the census was that the Christian community, almost 93% of Christians right across the country responded to the census. The Muslim community, 94%. The Hindu community, 87%, the Sikh community, 74%, and the Buddhist community, 73%. So you can see there, for us here, for this particular group, the Hindu community, there was a response rate right across the UK of 87%. We really need to actually start to look at how we can raise this so that more and more people take part in the census and also have their voice heard. Collecting inaccurate, incomplete data also means that government and local authorities cannot plan for our community needs. And this sort of things that they look at and the things that we may be losing out in by not being actively engaged in the census and showing, you know, that we are Hindus or Indians or Buddhists or whatever it may be. The results of that is that, you know, it could mean that capacity building for community centers, Samaj halls, temples, groups, charities, you know, that's not taken into account. It may also mean that local policy and funding decisions made by central and local government, it doesn't take into account the various communities, even where we represent a very significant percentage of the population. And we as Hindus on this call, we know that we represent a large population, but unless we take part in the census and clearly identify that, local authorities have got no idea whatsoever how many Hindus actually may live, for example, in Leicester, for that matter. The census form has 4 main sections. There's an introduction and declaration where the details of how to fill in the form. The second sort of main section in the form is names of household members and anybody staying with you overnight as a visitor on that day. So if there's anybody stopping over with you on the 21st of March, you need to include them onto the census form, even though they may not be with you or part of your own family. But if they're visitors, you would need to actually include that on your census form. Also has questions about accommodation, you know, the type of property you live in, and if it's owned or rented by yourself, that type of information. Also individual questions such as personal details about each household, the country of your birth, qualifications, what employment you may be in, what your general health is at the moment, your ethnic group, religion, job, and how do you travel, that type of thing. All this sort of information that you put in builds a picture of the society's needs right across the UK. And again, I mentioned to you about visitors. If there's anybody staying with you overnight, that needs to be included in the actual census form, including their birth, sex, and usual address where they would normally be living at that time. Just an example here, this is a sample paper questionnaire. So this is what the census questionnaire would look like when you receive it. It's very similar to like when we have a new passport application form, similar kind of document, similar sort of size, and it has various questions where you need to actually fill in and write in the information. And some of them are just simple tick boxes, others you actually you need to go in and actually write in. This is a sample questionnaire online, and you can see straight away how simple it looks online than it does on a paper copy. So again, really encouraging you to try and see if you can do this online as much as possible, because you'll find it a lot more easier. So again, simple questions like, you know, the family members, people who live temporarily away, who may be living with you but are away at the moment, that type of thing, your name and address and that type of thing are the sort of sample questions that we have on the online questionnaire as well. Now, the following questions are the ones that I've been particularly asked to show you by the committee of Shreeji Dham Haveli as well, so that you can see the sort of questions that may relate to your community, your society at the moment. So one of the questions that we have on the census form is that it says to you, what is your ethnicity? So you can see on the left-hand side there some questions, and then on the right-hand side. So I'll go through this as if I was filling this in, so it'll probably give you an idea of what I would do. So it says to me that what is my ethnic group? So I would first of all, on the left-hand side where it says Asian or British, Asian British, I would tick that box. I would then tick, because I particularly may not want to be called Asian, so I would tick the box Asian, then I would go into other ethnic group. And then on the right-hand side, it will give you a selection whether you're Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Chinese, or any other Asian background. So I would then I would tick the Indian box there. So in effect, what I've actually ticked is I'm Asian, other ethnic group is Indian. So I'm actually saying to myself, and let census know that I'm Indian. So this is one of the questions that actually comes up on the census form. And this shows you here that if you look at the data that was collected in 2011, those people who identified themselves as being Indian in the UK, there were 1,412,000, possibly near enough 1,413,000 people identified themselves as being Indian. And then you can see there that those who identified themselves as being Black and Afro-Caribbean, Pakistani, other Asian groups, other ethnic groups, Bangladeshi and Chinese. And it's that figure there in red that you want to see there, that, it says in the last census that there was 1,412,000 Indians. And we know, as the Indian community, that figure there is possibly double that amount that we believe that are actually in the UK. But this goes back again as to those people who filled this form in didn't really look at this question very carefully and didn't actually identify what their ethnicity was. So again, what I said to you before, you really need to actually tick the correct identity, the ethnicity that you are, and ensure that that's actually captured in the data. Second question that's actually on the census form is about what is your religion. Now you can see there on the left hand side there are various round boxes where you need to actually tick. So again, you've got whether you're no religion, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Jewish, Muslim, Sikh, and any other religion as well. So again, for the purpose of this group, I would say majority of you would actually be ticking the Hindu box. And that's important here to ensure that you tick the correct box to identify what religion you are. One of the things that happened last time round in the census is that people said that they don't belong to any of these ethnicity. And then some did say that, we are other religion. They tick the bottom box where it says any other religion. And on the right-hand side, they wrote things like, I'm a Vaishnav, I'm a Swaminarayan, I'm a Brahma Kumari, and so forth. And the thing is, you've got to remember here that, what value that possibly has by you putting in, your sort of subsections of what religion would be. So again, try and look at how you can fit yourself in and to identify yourselves as being a Hindu on this question. It's a voluntary question, and I think this is one of the other reasons why the figures were so low in 2011, is because it says when you go into this question, it will say this is a voluntary question, so you don't have to fill it in if you don't want to. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why people must have thought, well, I don't need to fill this in, so they carried on to the next question. But if you want to be identified as a Hindu community in the UK, then it's very much important that you tick the Hindu box there. Again, you can see there on the census data. Now, this is a really, really interesting slide for me. And for those of you who know me, that I work for the Hindu community on a national level. And one of the things I do, I use census data quite a lot to talk to governments, to local authorities. And the last census, and this is a thing that lets me down all the time, it says that in the UK, there were 816,633 Hindus. Now, let me put that into context for you. That, we are saying that in the UK, there are 816,000 Hindus, when in fact, if you look at the Gujarati community alone, there are over 800,000 Gujaratis in the UK. So how on earth can there be 816,000 Hindus in the UK? And again, this is as a result of people not ticking that Hindu tick box, or ignoring that box and thinking that it was actually a voluntary question. And this figure is really important. So when you go to governments and when you go to local authorities or funders, they look at this information, and you've got to prove to them to say that there is a sizable Hindu community here. We need to have X, Y, and Z. We need to have X, Y, and Z resources. But you can't do that if you're showing the sort of results that we're actually showing there, from the Hindu community. So really, really important. And again, stress on that the sort of questions that you need to fill in. And I know that the committee have asked me to actually stress on this as well today. The other question that we have here is, describe your national identity. And what happens in this question is that when somebody asks you this question, they'll say to you, what's your national identity? People automatically think that we're talking about what color passport you have. And, if you have that purple color passport, then, they think you're British, or we assume that this question is saying that, are you British? Well, the thing is, this question is saying to you, how would you like to describe yourself? And again, I'll take you through this question. If it was me, I would tick the first box, which is British, because I'm very proud to be British. I live in this country, and I've lived most of my life in this country. So I would tick the British box, and then I would tick the other box. And then on the right-hand side, where it says put your answer in, I would actually put on here Indian. So my identity would be British Indian, and that's what I would class as what I would want the BBC, what I would want the government and everybody to know me as a British Indian. And that's how I would tick that. Again, you have a choice there of whether to tick English, Welsh, Scottish, Northern Irish, or any other identity that you wish to put into that national identity question. But it's really, really important to remember, this question is not asking you what your passport citizenship is. It's not asking you, what passport you hold. So really pay some attention to this question as well, about how you think you should be identified, and how you think we as a whole community in the UK should be identified on this question as well. Bearing in mind, whatever information comes out from this will determine how resources are allocated. And again, just to give you an idea, you can see there that last census in 2011, 311,000 people identified themselves as being Indian. Very, very low figure of how people identified them as being what their national identity would be. So it just shows you what happened 10 years ago and what it would be like today. A lot of people tick the Asian box, and what tends to happen there is that you get piled into a thing called an Asian community, or you get piled into what's called a BAME, the BME community, the Black minority ethnic community. So again, really, really important to see what you want to be identified as your national identity. Another question that we have on the census, it says, what is your main language? And the fact that I'm speaking in English to you today, I remember that in my last 10 years ago when I filled the census out, from what I can remember, I think I actually just put on there English, because I was speaking English, at work, I'm speaking English at home, without realizing the consequences of what made this day to be. So, again, you have an opportunity of here that, if English is your main language, then to tick the English box. If it isn't, in your case, it may be Gujarati. So again, use the opportunity to write other and write in Gujarati as your mother tongue language, or Hindi or Punjabi, whichever language you speak. And also then the following question asks you, how well do you speak English? So, you can cover that question about your English on that question 19, and perhaps look at what your mother tongue language is on question 18. Help is available online whilst you complete the census form. So when you go online and you try and fill this form in, if at any question you find it difficult, there is a section on the right hand side where you can click in, and it will give you all the help that you need, a bit like a Google search engine. It will give you help about how to fill that questionnaire in and what that question means. And that's available to you in all languages. So Gujarati is in there as well. So your whole census form will actually automatically come in as if it was in a Gujarati format. So really important to actually use the help facilities that are available to you online, to fill the census form in. And as you can see there, that there is a free phone number, 0800 587 2021. And again, this number here is something that you can call to find out any information about census. On the other side of the phone as well, you'll have friendly voices. People will be able to speak to you in your language as well. And if there's any help, whatever you need, that's the telephone number. And that goes live on the 1st of March. So from the 1st of March, you'll be able to actually ring this number if you need to. Just want to show you here some of the successes of the last census and what other organizations and what other religions use. So, for example, the Muslim Council of Britain used the 2001 census. So this is going back even further than the last census. 2 censuses ago, so over 20 years ago, they successfully used the data to secure a supply of Muslim healthcare chaplains in hospitals, and also further provisions for the community for funerals at cemeteries as well. So they were able to go to the local authority and the government and say, we need more healthcare chaplains because we've got a lot of people who go into hospitals, and we want somebody who can speak the language and have the culture to be able to be with them. So they used it very, very successfully in 2001. Last census, the Jewish Policy Research, they actually used the census data population to estimate future care needs for their Jewish community, the elderly community, because they realized 10 years ago that we have what's called an aging community in the UK. So people are living longer. And as a result of that, they may need further help and extra help and resources as time goes along. So they started working on this 10 years ago to actually make sure that they use the census data, to look at how residential care homes will be able to meet the needs of Jewish community, and at the same as the Muslim Council of Britain about crematoria provisions as well. And I just want to raise something here. If we look at it from a Hindu point of view, we've been fighting that we need crematoria right across the countries, and at the moment there are only 2 to 3 crematorias across the country that has anything to do with Hindu religion in there, and I think you're lucky in Leicester that you've actually had that, and that's actually been done by somebody financing it themselves. This is the difference that we've got to start to think about how you should be able to use the census data to lobby those that matter. The Jain community, and again, since the last census and census before that, have been doing tremendously well, because if you look at now, any booking you make on an airline to go to India, Africa, wherever it is in the world, and you say you want a vegetarian meal inside an airline, they will actually serve you a Jain meal. And that's as a result of the lobbying that the Jain community have done very successfully over many years to ensure that happens. And the Jain community as well is also looking at healthcare settings. So again, I mentioned to you about healthcare chaplains, to make sure that chaplains are available for the Jain community in hospitals, care homes, and also to ensure that Jainism appears appropriately in religious education books and also education teachings as well. So, perhaps sit back and think about what you've just seen on this sheet and think, well, you know what, we need probably every single thing that every other community has actually done and use the census data effectively. So I think that should be a little bit of motivation about what we do about thinking about how we fill out this census form. What benefits are there for the Indian community? And like I mentioned to you, community organizations, we can use this for future needs for community centers and other charitable projects that we may want to do in the area that we live in. Planning and approval for funding for temples, gurdwaras. Again, I know we've got a couple of councillors on the call today. One of the biggest things that any Hindu ever faces is when they want to actually have planning permission to build a temple or a community project. This particular thing about planning approval takes absolutely ages, and you consider that with other communities and you think, well, how come they get things so quickly? It's because they can use the ONS data, the census data, to show to local authority that, look, there is a definite need for this because we have X amount of people that live in the vicinity of where we live. So again, the data that is collected by census is not only good for government and local authorities, we as communities can also have a copy of that data and strip it down and use it effectively for our planning. Healthcare there, resources for healthcare conditions that are prominent in the Indian community. And Jyoti Ben was on the call earlier on before we started, and she'll look at this and she'll agree to it, that the Indian community suffers from diabetes, cancer and heart problems, and also mental health issues as well through isolation. And again, this is one of the things we really need to ensure then, that we have healthcare chaplains in hospitals and care homes for our community who is actually suffering from these ailments and conditions. Council funding, again, suitable care homes, elderly travel and provision for social care. So again, local authorities will look at that. And if we can actually show in the census that yes, we as a Hindu community, Indian community, have a large proportion of elderly people. We can go to the local authority and say, what provisions are you going to make for us for the next 10 years using the census data? And also, the census data can also help for you to look at funding for the normal community activities that you do on a day-to-day basis. So this is things like, going to a funding or a grant organization and saying, well, I've got X amount of people in my day center, we do X amount of activities, and as a result of that, you can apply for grants from this trust and foundation. So, let me show you some pictures here, and I think the pictures will probably tell you a story. That you will notice that every picture that I show here now, there's 5 pictures, or 4 pictures, sorry, and you'll say to yourself, yes, we already do this. So then that's another thing to think about, that other communities are getting money to actually do these type of things, but we do it because it's part of our Hindu Dharma, and we say it's part of our seva. So we've been doing this. So yoga, you go to most of the community centers and halls and temples, and you'll see that we have yoga activities there. Again, keeping people fit, keeping them away from the NHS, so the NHS doesn't get burdened. All those things we do as a community, but we've never been recognized for doing that and actually keeping people fit and wealthy and healthy as well. Luncheon clubs up and down the country. We have luncheon clubs. We call it prashadi. There's no difference in calling it prashadi than it's calling it a lunch club. So again, look at how we do these things. Other communities get funding to do this. In some cases, you go up and down the country and you see some of the elderly ladies who come to a luncheon club, probably once or twice or 3 times a week. Do you know, if you ever sit with them and talk to them, in some of these elderly men and ladies live on their own, and the hot meal that you provide them in your community center is probably the only hot meal that they will have in the entire day, because they live on their own. They don't have anybody else that live with. So look how important the work we're doing it. We call this all sorts of different names. Like I said, we call it prashadi, we call it jararam prashadi, that we do. Well, whatever it is, we do it, but we've never ever thought about why we're doing it, apart from the seva reason. But we are actually doing a lot more to the economy by providing this kind of service. Satsangs, again, we always think, in our temples, and basically satsang karta is a religious thing. But the fact is, a lot of the elderly people, a lot of the children, we're able to take them out of their homes and be in an environment that gives them that flexibility, and especially the older people, that the boredom and the isolation that they get at home, we're taking them out of that, even if we have satsang once a week or twice a week. But again, we do this, but we've never ever thought about what we are doing and what we should be saying to the local authorities, that we do these things. Why are we not getting any funding for it? Youth activities, Shreeji Dham is one of the organizations across the country that I've seen that involves young people like no other temple does. And I think this is another area that, why do you do that? Because you want to build capacity within our young youth and our young people, so that when they grow up to become good citizens of the United Kingdom. And again, we are doing something that probably the education department should be doing, or local government should be doing, but we do it because we think it's seva. But again, another reason to think about where possible funding can come from if we use the data very, very carefully. And again, the same for men's groups as well up and down the country. So they're just some of the ideas, that when you sit back and think about it, you'll notice why others get something and we don't, because we don't know how to actually lobby and campaign for that, for things that I think nearly every single community center, every single temple in the UK does all of those things already. How can we work together? One of the things that we'll do as community advisors, giving information, advice and support to your organization from now right up until Census Day. We want to engage with you so that we can provide you with information in different languages for your websites or your Facebook page, videos, you name it. We'll be able to provide you that, so that we can use that information to be able to make some sort of promotion for people to take part in the census. And again, we have many, many printed resources in various translated versions in Gujarati, Punjabi, Hindu, so that we can meet every specific group across the country. Just wanted to say that there's never been a more important time for the Indian community to get involved and engage with this important piece of work, which will benefit the whole community and the future generations to come. I love this quote simply because of the fact that, when you look at most people that are on this call today, we really don't know where we're going to be in 10 years' time, whether we'll still be here in 10 years' time. But think about what kind of legacy we can leave behind for our sons and daughters and our grandchildren after them as well. Do we want them to suffer in the same way that we have done in the last 10, 15, 20, 40 years, 50 years of being in this country? We worked very hard and we've done things from our own money and build things from our own pockets. It's not going to be the same for our children, living in this country. So do what you think is right to ensure that you leave a legacy for those of us or those of our children behind us. Just a quick timeline of what's happening. So a lot of you may have started to receive a postcard through the letterbox. We started from yesterday and it will go on until the 27th of February. So that it will just tell you that census is on its way. Then from the 3rd until the 12th of March, there'll be an initial contact pack, which will show you what you need to do to actually take part in the census, which happens on the 21st of March 2021. Then what will happen is, for those who haven't taken part in the census, you'll get another 4 letters thereafter for the entire month, reminding you that you still haven't filled your census form in. And then around the time of the 15th of April onwards, you'll also start, well, in fact, from the 30th of March, you'll start to see field officers who will actually come and knock on your door as well to tell you that you haven't filled out the census form. If after this date you still don't fill your census form, that's when the non-compliance begins on the 30th of April. And this is where I mentioned to you earlier on that potential of fines of up to £1,000 and a possible criminal record as well for not taking part in the census. So you can see where we are at the moment. Next week, you'll all be receiving the first letter that comes to the doorstep where you can start to then fill in your census form. So really important that this event happened today so that we can tell the community what to look out for in the next few days. There you see on the right hand side, this is the postcards that you should have been receiving. Some have already received it yesterday, but they'll be going on from now until the 30th, just basically telling you to inform the people that census is coming. Then you'll receive that initial contact pack, which is on the 3rd to the 12th of March. And again, this is the real key thing here. If you look on the right hand side of the screen here, you've got a 16-digit number. This number is unique to each and every household, so you'll all get a different reference number, and you need this access code to be able to go onto the internet, type this in, and it will bring up your census form. So it will be allocated to you and your household only. Under no circumstances must you let other people have this unique code unless they're from your family, close friends, or if they're from your community leaders who may be helping you fill out the census form. So really, really important to keep that safe, and that is unique to each and every individual household across the country. And you know, one of the key things that I found doing these Zoom calls, we've done Zoom calls like this, I must have done coming up to about 120 of these now over the last 4 months. And the idea behind it is that when people receive this letter, they'll do one of 2 things. You know, first of all, they'll see that signature there, the logo, which is a government stamp, and they'll get scared to say, what have I received from the government? And that's that fear that comes into people. Secondly, others may think, oh, this is just a mail shot, you know, that I've got, and they'll put it aside onto one side, thinking that they'll do this census in the next couple of days, but they'll forget about it. And before you know it, you know, you could be in the non-compliance. So again, this is what the actual letter will look like when it comes to you. And do keep that access code really, really sort of safe. Again, the sort of things you can do, tell your family and friends about the census, really, really important. Tell people to join future Zoom meetings like this. I mean, we've done Zoom meetings with other Samajis and other temples a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Now they're inviting us back again in 2 weeks' time, saying that, okay, let's talk more about the questionnaire that we get so that we can talk to them and go through the question one by one. And I hope that's something that Shreeji Dham may think is worthwhile doing perhaps in the next 2 weeks again as well. Support your family and friends in completing the census forms. use all the resources that are available on the census website. Like I said, there's some great information on there in Gujarati language and in Hindi language as well, and as well as in English, that you can actually download from the website. Talk to your local community advisor, and we have my colleague Iftikhar, who looks after Leicester, who's on the call today. His role is there to help, like myself as well, to help the Indian community across the areas so that they get all the information that we need for their social media resources. We have leaflets and posters which are available in hard copy as well as for social media assets as well, if people want to actually use that on social media. Also look out for a massive media campaign that Census has started a few days ago. So most of the Indian news channels, where if you're watching the local serials that come on in the evening, you'll notice that Census adverts will be coming on Asian television, Gujarat Samachar, Garvi Gujarat, Asian Voice. Most of the newspapers will be carrying Census adverts for the next 3 weeks now, telling you about Census. And you'll even see billboards outside bus stops will have Census information. So we're hoping that in the next 2 weeks, everybody in the entire UK would have at least heard about Census. Thank you very much. That completes the presentation. A little bit of an overview about the sort of things that to expect from the actual census questionnaire, and there's resources that you can actually use from ourselves. But at the same time, you as community leaders as well, is that how do you want to engage your community to ensure that they've got the recommended information to help them better fill out the census forms? Like I said, Iftikhar and myself are here to also answer any questions that you may have about the census. So over back to you, Praveen Bhai. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Sanjay Bhai. That was wonderful and very detailed presentation, and was very much informative as well. And definitely Shreeji Dham Haveli will try to repeat the presentation in a different format of what you said, like question to questions and whatever we can. So we will arrange that in the near future, obviously before the 21st of March. Yeah. And on behalf of our technical team, I really would like to apologize for the video sound, which we lost during the videos. We could not get sound. We will try if the time permits. But in the meantime, obviously, we would like to start with the questions, and we had a lot of questions on the chat, as well as obviously. So now if I can request our Shreeji Dham Haveli youth team member, Reena Babla, to start on questions and answer, please. Over to you, Reena.
So we've got quite a few questions. A few of them you've actually covered in your presentation, Sanjay Bhai. So we'll try and go over to the new ones. So first of all, is the local authority disproportioning the grants available to us because Hindus are being classed under the BAME community due to less participation during the 2011 census?
So perhaps if we can open up Iftikhar's.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Do you want to have a go at this one? Yeah.
Right. Okay. The way I see it, Reena, for a fact, I know that there is no clear answer on that, as far as I know. However, just like Sanjay Bhai said, it's very important we identify ourselves and represent ourselves correctly. Now, if we didn't do that, then we are obviously going towards the answer you might be thinking is happening, which is that we are not being represented. So if I decided, oh, this 10-minute form, and I'm just going to put down I'm Indian and whatever, and this and that, what am I doing? I'm doing a disservice to the community. And this is the dangerous part, which I think, may I just say, Sanjay Bhai, congratulations. That was a flawless presentation. So he's probably covered everything. But this is why Sanjay Bhai's point was very important, that we identify ourselves correctly. Obviously, it's down to you how you identify yourselves. I would say I'm British Asian, but I know for a fact, and my father told me this for many years, that we go back at least 8 generations to India. So you are Indian. He wouldn't accept that I'm British Indian. even though I was born here. You know, so these things are very important. My main language at home is Gujarati. I've always spoken Gujarati. If I didn't, I wouldn't even be alive right now. My dad would have killed me. He was just so adamant that inside home, you must speak Gujarati. Only if you're talking about menial stuff should you speak about things in English. It was just his way. So the only answer I can give is if we represent ourselves correctly, we are staying away from the danger of falling into, as you say, you know, funding not being allocated correctly. And this is why when I looked at some of the figures, which I wasn't aware of, to be honest with you, which Sanjay Bhai presented, I was a little bit shocked. So this is why, you know, when we turn around and say, are you Hindu? Bhai, yes, I am. Is a simple answer, isn't it? If you then say, I only associated with this Devi or this Devta, otherwise don't class me into this, then you start going off onto a tangent. And this is what happens with a lot of our people. They don't seem to think, you know, we need to get into the basics first. So please, my request is, you know, with folded hands, represent yourselves correctly so we are not in danger of being underrepresented, because this data is going to be there for 10 years. It's going to be used for 10 years. And that's a big thing. It's not like someone's going to go back in 2 years' time and say, oh, Sanjay Bhai, can we have a recount? It's not going to happen. This data, even now, when they're making decisions before this census, they're referring to data that's 11 years back. A lot happens in a decade. So I would say, Reena, you know, we identify ourselves correctly, we take part, and that way we're away from the danger of being misrepresented or underrepresented. And that goes for every community.
Rina, just to add on to what Iftikhar said there, you know, if you look at the present situation, look at in the last 12 months, the COVID-19 pandemic has disproportionately affected the Indian community up and down the country. The BAME community, yes, the Asian community, yes, but when you look at it from an Indian perspective, and then you stream it down even more to a Hindu perspective, you'll notice that we've been disproportionately been affected by COVID-19. Had the data been there, then people like Ratila Bai going on the call and other councillors would have been able to say, look how many people have died as a result of this who are Hindus in Leicester Infirmary or whatever it may have been, and how funding resources could have been better allocated for those, A, who have gone into hospital, and more so for those who have survived this horrible pandemic and have come back home now. What about the resources for them, you know, from particular houses? Like I mentioned to you in my slides, a lot of people live on their own. A lot of our community live on their own in their own houses. What would they do for, you know, for food and other aspects of things to help them recuperate? And this is where the data is really important. To answer your question, Rina, yes, it's really important to say that you're a Hindu so that you can actually clearly show that Hindus need X, Y, and Z resources. We may be different from other communities about what we need. So we've really got to identify that.
Thank you both. So Sanjay, you mentioned in your presentation how to fill out the form in terms of British first. You had it on the left-hand column and then the right-hand column. Do you want to just reiterate?
Rina, can you
hear me?
Yeah, can you speak up, please? Yeah.
Yeah. So Sanjay Bhai, in your presentation, you mentioned how we should be filling out the form. So British initially, that was in the left-hand column, and then you had Indian. Could you just reiterate that for everybody so that they know exactly how they need to form?
Yeah. So for example, again, I was talking to Praful Bhai for a long period of time this afternoon, and even yesterday evening we had a meeting with the committee. And you know, as far as the community feels that what we should be, there are 4 out of all the questions that you have on the census form, and there are many of them and you have to fill all of them in, but the committee felt that there were 4 major questions. It was question 14 about the national identity, and again, You know, if you feel that you're a British Indian, you need to actually say, yes, tick the British box. And I think we should all do. We're proud to be British. That's the first and foremost. Whether you were born in this country or not, we live in this country, and the country has made us what we are today. So it's important to recognize that, to say, yes, we are British, then tick the other box. And again, as my brother Iftikhar said, that, you know, if your roots go back to India, you need to actually put this down. You know, my children are born in this country, but my parents were born in Africa, Uganda, but before that, their parents were born in India. So that the lineage and our sort of background goes very far as Indian, or India being our roots. So that's a really key thing about question 14. Question 15, again, is the ethnicity question, where you've got on the left-hand side, you know, you've got an option there of ticking Asian. But again, many people don't like being many Hindus and many Indians don't like being called an Asian. You know, they want to have their own identity. So perhaps this question may help you, you know, to work with local authorities, to work with the media, to say, no, there's a large proportion of Indian community in this country, and we want to be known as Indians. So again, question 15 would be your ethnic group, which would be Indian. Question 16 is... And I'm sorry for laughing about this, but it's the religion question. Let me put things into perspective. And please, I forgive and I put my hands up for those who feel offended with what I'm going to say. You know, my friends who work with me in ONS, they're from all different communities. You know, the Pakistani community, the Somalian community, the Polish community, the Christian community, you name it. You know, they've got community advisors looking after all of the faiths. We, as in myself, Iftikhar here as well, who are the community advisors for the Indian community, we are the only community officers who are going around talking to people and telling them about this religion question and saying to you, please, please, please tick the Hindu box. No other faith will ever have to do that. If you're a Muslim, they know you're a Muslim, you will actually tick the Muslim box. If you're a Jewish, they know they are Jewish, they will tick the Jewish box. Why is it that we as Hindus, we've done 180 of these Zoom calls, all we've been doing is telling people, please tick the Hindu box. Is it that much of a crime for you to put down that you're a proud Hindu? No, just sit back and think about this. Why? No other faith has to do this. You've seen so many videos that are going around in WhatsApp and social media, and all you see, please tick Hindu, please tick Hindu. Do we as a community need to be reminded this? But the sheer fact is, yes, we do, because the last census, only 833,000 of us actually said we were Hindus.
I just add something here. I just want to say, in my time since I've been working on the census, the best response I've got from any community has been the Hindu community. So, such a warm welcome. So, you know, what can we do for you? Whether it's Praful Bhai or Praveen Bhai, Sanjay Bhai, you know, even the councillor Ratilal Bhai, they've all been so, like, you know, open to the census. That what do you want us to do? We're here to help. Let's go for it. You know, for a community like that, that's so open in that. You know, how do you think I personally would feel that if the Hindu community is underrepresented or misrepresented, you know, not taking part or failing in some way, for them to not get funding? The amount of ladies I've spoken to that belong to community groups who have said, oh, we don't get funding anymore. We used to run this luncheon club, we've stopped. This community center doesn't run. This yoga class has closed. This dance class is not operating as efficiently as before. It's sad to hear this. It's sad. And it's sad because for me, I somewhere think it's not been they've not been represented correctly. Surely someone's failed somewhere. This is why what Sanjay Bhai is saying is very important. And again, I reiterate, it's a personal thing. How you identify yourselves, I have no control over that. But please identify yourselves correctly, because you might think you're one person, but you're one important person in a very important community that has made a very important contribution in this country. And I personally request everyone, take part, answer every question correctly, so that you're doing a service for your community going forward. And hopefully, if we follow this pattern, in 10 years' time, our children will, and so forth. So please.
Thank you both. So we really do need to remember that we are Hindus, and therefore we do really need to fill out those optional questions on the form that Sanjay Bhai went through, 14, 15, and 16, really, really important questions. Okay, so the next question is, if somebody receives, somebody who can't read English, how would they know that they've received details to fill out the census form if it's all in English?
Right, so I think this is the job that where me and Iftikhar come into, is that we've got to try and reach as many of those in the Indian community as possible to let them know, like we're doing now with the Zoom calls, and through Samajis and through temples and through organizations, so they can talk to their members. Because let's be honest, that you know your community better than anybody else does. You know, you as community leaders know each and every member in your community. So some kind of communication that may go out from yourselves to all the community to say census is on its way, whether it's you do it in Gujarati or not. And if you need those posters or leaflets, you can get them from us. And ONS will be able to provide you that if you need to send that out to the community. So very good question that, you know, if somebody doesn't speak in English, you know, what would they do? And this is the reason why the language question in the census is so important. So it really leads me on nicely to what you've just actually said there, Arina, that if you can't read English, why write English? Write in there that you speak in Gujarati or your language is Hindi, so that people like Ratila Bai and the local authorities and statutory authorities can then look at this and say, in future, we have to do things in this, and this language. You know, COVID-19 again has proved to us that the majority of the elderly community who couldn't read English, who couldn't understand some of the simple instructions that the government has been giving out, you know, staying safe, wearing masks, some didn't understand that. So there was a need for local authorities to actually have this printed into different languages. So again, excellently leads on to that question about language. It's really important to recognize and put down your language so that resources can come in those languages.
Rita, can I just come in for what Sanjay Bhai just said now? If any community centers, temples, anything like that, as a councillor, we are able to deliver to your doorstep, then you can distribute in the language you want. If you want Hindus, we can provide in Gujarati leaflet as well. That is for us to pick up from the census team as well as the local authority.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question is, will we have access to the results of the census once it's completed?
Right, yes, so everybody thinks that this census and the ONS data is just for government and local authorities. It is available for every single individual that lives in this country. And it's going to be available on the ONS website after 12 months, where you can get the information. You can then extract the information from there that's relevant to you as a community. So I'm going to take off my ONS hat, and I'm going to put my hat on my normal day-to-day work. I'm the chief executive of a local charity here in Coventry, which is an Asian group, mainly serving Asian men and ladies. I use the census data, and I have been using the ones from the last 10 years to apply for grants, to lobby government, to campaign against local authorities. And my day center that I have, which started off 1 day a week, is now running 5 days a week, employing 11 staff, having 480 service users that come to use the services. How has that been possible? It's because the ONS data that I had from the last census, I was able to extract the information and take that forward with grant-making authorities, take that to the local authorities and saying, listen, I've got 480 ladies and men over the age of 70 coming to my services every day. What are you going to do for me to be able to continue this service going on from 1 year to another? So those pictures I showed you on my presentation were from my group to show you that everybody does yoga, but why is it that yoga should be free? You know, every other organization, you know, even the English community, the mainstream community, you know, they get money to actually train to other people to do yoga. So why do we not think about it in that way? So, you know, definitely the information, I would say, is as good for the local authority and the government, but it's even better for us.
So we can extract that data from the website.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you. Is this website secure? Can your personal information be sold to third parties?
Right, so let me tell you that, you know, I feel very, very proud to work for the Office for National Statistics. And I'll tell you why. The name says itself, Office for National Statistics. It's the most securest organization that you can possibly get in the UK or across the world when it comes to actually data. You watch television every day for the last 12 months and you see the figures of people who have had a COVID test, how many have been tested, how many have died. Who supplies that figure? It's the ONS. It's the Office for National Statistics. So they run most of the data for all government departments. So it's possibly the safest website you can possibly get, you know, right across the world. So it does provide data for every government department.
Okay, so nothing to worry about when filling the form out.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
As far as we know, yes. I'd like to think that is as secure as it can get.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so you mentioned that that people could be fined £1,000, and also the government census website states that you could be fined £1,000 if you don't complete the census. Is this fine mandatory?
Well, I think I'll answer that question another way around, that taking part in the census is mandatory. You know, every single household across the UK should be taking part in the census. When it comes to the fines, obviously, you know, for non-compliance, you know, it's clearly there that people could get fined £1,000 for non-compliance of taking part in the census. But at the same time, you can also get fined for providing false information on the census form as well. So it works both ways, that yes, there could be fines for up to £1,000, but at the same time, if you give false information, there's also a possibility of a fine as well. But when you say to me that, is it mandatory that the fine will be given? To be honest with you, that's going to be entirely up to the ONS and perhaps the magistrates and the courts to determine whether it's worth taking a person to court for £1,000 for not filling up a census form. But the legal requirement is there. So if that was to be brought in, the legislation is there to actually take that forward. But one thing I'll say to you, Rina, we are a very law-abiding community in the UK. We have so less people in prisons and other things. You know, let's not be the community in the UK that potentially can get so many fines. And what I'm saying to you there is, please, you know, fill out the census form so that we don't want to be known as a community that have the most amount of fines.
Absolutely. And rather than worry about the fine, we want to be contributing to this so that it actually helps our community.
Well, absolutely. If you've got £1,000 to spare, why don't you give it to the Dham itself and let them build, you know, a bigger hall and a bigger mandir and you know, all sorts of things. If you've got that much money to spare, if every single, you know, Hindu Indian has got £1,000 to give it to the Shreeji Dham. You know, they'll be able to do massive amount of work with it.
Can I just also add, with regards to what Sanjay Bhai is saying, the fine is obviously, it's mentioned for a reason, but it's not the starting point. I'm not saying, you know, Rina, if you don't fill this form in, you're going to get £1,000 fine, because that's the wrong way to go about it. We're trying to encourage the community. And I'd like to think, just like Sanjay Bhai said, the Hindu community, as far as I know, is very compliant, very law-abiding, and they want to be part of this. So I've had very little negativity from the Hindu community as far as the census goes, honestly. And I'm not saying this to make anyone feel good. I said this to Sanjay Bhai earlier as well. So, you know, taking part is important. And this obviously comes somewhere down the line. I don't think anyone, even the richest person, the Hindu Chas, the Mittals, haven't got £1,000 to spare, I'm sure. So I'd like to think that, you know, everyone's intention is obviously to take part and feel safe about taking part. And that's why me and Sanjay Bhai at least are here to reassure you that it is safe. There is nothing to worry about. We ourselves are going to take part. I don't think I would be here, and I'm sure Sanjay Bhai wouldn't be here if we didn't feel that it was safe to take part In fact, we'd be telling you not to take part. But we're actually saying that it is safe. It's for our benefit. It's for our benefit going forward for at least 10 years and possibly further. So why would we want to do a disservice to our community and our people?
Thank you. Okay, Sanjay Bhai, you mentioned quite a few important dates in your presentation, and 21st of March came up a few times. Could you just reiterate what the importance of the 21st of March is, please?
Yeah, so 21st of March is actual Census Day. And that's the day that, you know, a snapshot will be taken of the entire UK society to determine how many people live in this country, what our occupations are, and it will be the basis of the report, really, to actually get a snapshot of everything that happens on the 21st of March. So with everything, it's a bit like having a birthday. You need to have a date to be able to say we are going to be working towards this particular date. And the 21st of March is ingrained in our minds that, yes, we're going to be getting all these papers and these questionnaires a week or so in advance, but you can start to fill that in, you know, as soon as you start to get that, so that you are ready and done, hopefully, by the 21st of March. And we don't come to this stage, you know, after the 21st of March with the lockdown and the restrictions. Do you really want somebody to knock on your door and speak to you for 10 minutes to fill out an application form that you could have done yourself, even if you had 3 weeks to do it? Let's just be you know, really sensible about this. It's something that really needs to be done before. And so that's why 21st of March has been given us that date.
Thank you. So as you're filling the form out, you're filling everything according to the 21st of March. Is that right?
That's right. So basically, you know, it's like I said, that even if you have somebody at your house on the 21st of March and you've had some friends who come round on the 21st of March, the first thing you probably need to do is to call the police, because the lockdown says you shouldn't really have anybody at your house on the 21st of March. But if you do, that person needs to actually be put onto your census form as well, even if they don't live at your house. If they've got a house that they live in London and they're visiting you, their details need to go onto your form on that day to make sure that they're counted.
Okay.
And as somebody mentioned as well, and I think it was my very good friend Praveen Bailuka, who I've seen for a long time. He was mentioning is a duplication. You know, is there a possibility that names can be duplicated and people can be counted twice? This is the reason why we say that, you know, date of birth and the information, the names that you have on the census form, when it goes back to ONS, it actually identifies any duplications, you know, that we may have. And a classic example would be that if you have a child in university, and at the moment, you know, because of lockdown, they're with you, you know, so you'll need to include them into your census form when it comes. But at the same time, we have another team, a whole massive team that is working with universities, and they're working with care homes, so we don't miss a single person. And if somebody does it twice, so the student does it at university and he or she is also covered in the census form, the date of birth and the name would actually then eliminate one of those entries. A bit like a double voting, although it's not like elections that, you know, it automatically get rid of that. So
okay, that's really helpful, thank you. And we'll just go to the final question now. Where does one obtain help if they need to do so to complete the form?
Yeah, well, you know, you guys are so lucky. I live in Coventry. You've got an excellent gentleman, my colleague in Leicester, who will be able to help you. And his role, Iftikhar's role, is to work with the Indian community in Leicester to ensure that you get whatever help and support that you actually need, whether it's information. And I'll pass this over to Iftikhar to explain that.
I'll just mention briefly, just get to the point, you know, help will be available. There are going to be support centers. I do remember, I don't know, I'm sure Sanjay Bhai will correct me, but I am pretty sure that on Monday I saw an email which basically summed it up by saying something along the lines of, if an organization or people request you for help, then please do direct us to contact them. So I don't think they want me to say, here's the number, call them. It's a case of me contacting the organization saying, Shreeji Dhamji, etc., whoever wishes for help, and this is the person to contact, and through that you will get the help. So there is help available, and I don't want anyone to panic and think, oh, what's going to happen? I've got nowhere to go to, no one's going to help me. However, I also want to say, if I may, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sanjay, I'd like to think that those people that can get help. So for example, if my father was alive, his English was a little weak, I would probably be doing it for him, because the help is there for everyone. But we want the really vulnerable, the ones that are, probably got nowhere to go to or no one to help them, to get that help first. So if you have someone like a grandchild, a nephew, someone like that who's willing to help you, then why not take that help? That's what the Indian community is good at, right?
Yes,
and you're right, Iftikhar is right, that, this is the time when we as a community have come together. If we don't come together for a lot of things, and we know this, but this is probably a time when we do need to come together. It's a once in 10-year exercise. Let's get the figures up where we want to see them. Secondly, help those within our community to ensure that they can actually, feel, because, somebody like my mother who doesn't live with me, but when I talk to her about census, she's so excited about filling in and saying she's a Hindu, she's an Indian, I come from Porbandar, I want to make sure that everybody knows that I come from India. She's so keen on it, but she's not going to be able to fill this form in until I help her do that. So I think the onus is on us, as communities and as families, to ensure we help each other. Obviously, COVID restrictions permitting and that, but sometimes even a simple phone call, being on the other line of the phone to be able to help somebody fill out their form will encourage them to fill that form in. So this is a time for us to come together. I've been speaking to many Samajis across the country and temples, and I've been saying to them, please, isn't there something you can do from your temple or your Samaj that you can help the society, your community? Unfortunately, the response that I've had has been very, very poor. And I was talking to Praful Bhai about this, even yesterday night, that why is it that we have the situation where, Shreeji Dham is such well placed, lovely to see so many young people on this call. It's like I said, I've done so many of these calls. I have not seen young people, A, hosting, B, being on the call, because it's them that are going to be able to help their mums and dads, their masis, masas, uncles and aunties as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the key message is everybody is filling out this form, hopefully, and therefore, pick up the phone to your neighbour. Everybody will be able to, or there will be somebody who can help. And something you both touched on earlier with regards to asking grandchildren or children to help, but also the other way around. So like from personal experience, when I was younger, I know my dad would always involve me and my younger brother to fill this form out. It's just one thing that happens every 10 years. And if you instill those the importance when you're so young, and if you're able to do that when you're older, when you're an adult, it's second nature. So, what you've taught us today about the importance of filling out the form, let's pass it on to the younger generation as well. I think that's important now while we're getting all this valuable information from you. So thank you both very, very much. I think you've given us a lot of important information and some key points to put down on the form. I'm now going to go over to Praful Bhai Thakrar for the vote of thanks. Thank you both again.
Thank you.
Badane Jai Shri Krishna. On behalf of the trustees and executive committee and the management committee of Shreeji Dham Haveli, I would like to thank Sanjay Jagatia. What a wonderful presentation you made. Intikab Khanji, you have been in touch with me through the council, and that anything Shreeji Dham needs any help, you are forever there. I'm very thankful to you, and I'm going to contact you. There is no doubt about that one. I would like to thank other institutions, other organizations who have joined us on this occasion, because we think that if we go as one unit, as a one organization, it helps the community very well. So I would like to thank Pramod Bhai Thakkar and all the trustees of Jalaram Pratna Mandal. They joined today with us. I would like to thank Shital Bhai Aratia, who is the president of Hindu Temple Leicester. Rajesh Bhai Patel is a new temple we have got in Leicester during the COVID. That did wonderful job during the COVID-19. That did a Hanuman from the Hanuman temple. Hemant Bhai Matani, we know Chandu Bhai Matani very well. The Sona Rupa group has joined us on this occasion. And I'm really very, very thankful to all the presidents and the committee members who have joined. I'm very thankful to all the people who have joined today. And Sanjay Bhai, you have shown about 6 slides there of what the community can do. And as a trustee of Shreeji Dham Haveli, I'm so proud to say that we are doing almost every activities at Shreeji Dham Haveli. Before the COVID-19, we used to have satsang, we used to have elderly lunch club, we used to have bhajan, kirtans, but even because of the COVID-19, we are doing everything on a Zoom now. And we are delivering the hot meals to our elderly every month, once. So we used to do every week during COVID-19, 6 weeks we did it, but then we stopped and we are doing once a month. I'm going to recommend it to the committee because there is quite a few taxes I'm also getting. Can we do it in Gujarati? So next seminar, I think we should do it in the elderly for the Gujarati. And on behalf of the trustee, I would say that I am very proud that we have nominated a dedicated team. Shreeji Dham Haveli has dedicated volunteers team. If anyone wants any help, ring me or Praveen Bhai or any executive members. They will guide you to the volunteers who is willing to complete this form online for you. Some of them are asking, we will go to their place, but like you said, that at the COVID-19, you can't go there. But I am very proud and I'm very thankful to all the volunteers who have agreed, because I have asked them to come and join today's Zoom meeting because they will understand what they will do. Because when I talked to them on the phone, there were questions they're asking. I said, when you come to the Zoom meeting and if you need any help, please go and I'll share the information with you. So I'm very thankful to all the people who are involved, the committee members. And once again, Sanjay and Intika Bhai, I'm very thankful to you for your guidance also. You have supported me all the way. And the councillor Ratilal Bhai has joined us. He is very helpful. And to my ward councillors, Pyara Singh, Rose Woodcock, and Rita Ben Patel, they are always constantly in touch with me also. So I can't say more. Thank you to everyone.
Prabhu, I tell you on behalf of the Office for National Statistics, I mean, you're one of the first organizations that I've spoken to out of so many who has openly come out and said, this is what we are going to do for my community. And I think you should be congratulated. My own Samaj has not even asked me to do that, but you as a community in Leicester, to go that far and say that you're going to offer that support to your community members, absolute fantastic. One of the few right across the country that you've done this.
Yes, can I just add, it's been an absolute pleasure for me to be part of this. Honestly, I feel so overwhelmed. Thank you to you, Prabhu Bhai, to Praveen Bhai and Sanjay Bhai, of course, to allow me to be part of this. It's been a wonderful evening for me. I've really enjoyed it. And we're here to help. My details are, I believe somebody's asked if I can give my details. I'm more than happy to pass my details, my email address, my number. Please do send me a text first. I'll be more than happy to call you back if you have any questions. We are here to help. We are here to do a service. Also, I was going to say, as from today, please start sending messages, raise awareness to your friends, your family, your colleagues at work, whoever you can, that it's important to take part and that we're represented. And, it's been wonderful meeting so many of you here. And I hope in future we can bond together, and maybe some Chai Nashto is not out of the question, which is what I look forward to most. So I'm waiting for this lockdown to open so I can meet you all personally.
Prabhu,
that's what I'd really like to do.
Prabhu, we were talking about how you built the Shreeji Dham, about using your own money, the community's money, going around to every household. My Samaj has done the same thing, building a community center, using money and asking from the own community to raise the money to be able to build this. Come on, guys, think about how you can use the ONS data to be able to get the funding that you require to build what you do. It's not just a temple you're building a well-being center, a center where people are going to be coming, to help with their isolation, to help with their fitness, their yoga, all the sort of things that we just take for granted, we get funding for. I mentioned to you that in my charity here in Coventry, we've received, just in the last 12 months, we've received £180,000 of funding to be able to be used in our center. That is sometimes enough to build a half a community center. You've got to use the data and fill in and make yourself represented so you can forcefully go to the funders and say, this is why we want this for. This is why we want the funding. It's like Professor Bhai said, in the last 12 months, you've done all of the things that I showed you on the slides. But the time now has come that you want to get funding for all of the things that you've done in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
So that you can continue it for the further 12 months and 12 months after that as well.
Yeah.
And the data, believe me, if you use the data, you will be able to get the funding.
I just want to conclude this one, Sanjay Bhai. I'm going to read it in Gujarati also. કે વસ્તી ગણતરી 2021 માં આવી રહી છે. ફક્ત આપણા સમુદાય માટેના ફક્ત 4 પ્રશ્નોનો મહત્વનો છે. ક્વેશ્ચન નંબર 14 છે રાષ્ટ્રીય ઓળખ. વીવી એટલે બ્રિટિશ અને ટિક બ્રિટિશ. ક્વેશ્ચન નંબર 15 છે વૈષ્ણવ જૂથ ટિક ઇન્ડિયન્સ. તમે ક્યાંના છો? ઇન્ડિયા. જો હું હજી બધાને કહું છું કે આપણે ભલે કોઈ વૈષ્ણવ છે, કોઈ સ્વામિનારાયણ છે, કોઈ જલા બાપાના કોઈ જન, આપણે જે આપણું કરવાનું છે, આપણે ઇન્ડિયન છીએ. આજે સંજયભાઈ, મેં તમારી સાથે વાત કરી કે 2010 માં I was born in Uganda, so I might have put Uganda.
Yeah, I did.
So we must have put Uganda, but that's why I was saying. But this time we must put as a religion, be proud. If your religion is destroyed, then you are destroyed. So it is very important we write Hindu. Hindu is the very important thing in our life. And plus, જેમ તમે કહ્યું કે ગુજરાતી તમે હિન્દી બોલતા હો કે ગુજરાતી બોલતા હો, એ પણ very important છે. કારણ કે બધા ઇંગ્લિશ તો બોલે છે. તો secondary જે question છે, you have to put English there. So because these are, મને મારી દ્રષ્ટિએ એવું લાગે છે કે આપણે આપણા ફ્યુચર જનરેશન માટે કરીએ છીએ. કારણ કે આપણે તો હવે કિનારા ઉપર આવી ગયા છે બધા, યુગાન્ડાથી જે આવ્યા ને. તો આપણા ફ્યુચર જનરેશન માટે કે એ લોકોને શું અહીંયા આવશે અને એ લોકો શું એ લોકોને હેલ્પ જોશે, તો આ સ્ટેટિસ્ટિક્સ બહુ ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ છે મારી દ્રષ્ટિએ. ધન્યવાદ બધાને.
Can I now thank you to everybody like Sanjay and Iftikhar as well? And if I can request Yagnesh Bhai, if we can try last time the video, if we can work their brilliant videos from Lord Jitesh Gadia as well as for the Hindus as well. So Yagnesh Bhai, over to you if you can try if it's working. Thank you.
Sound નથી આવતો.
No, sorry, Yagnesh Bhai, we're not getting the sound.
Not getting the sound. Okay, then I'll try that.
Try the other one. Mm-hmm.
The sound is on the thing, but I'll put it on the Facebook now anyway. That's okay.
Yeah.
So, Brahim, I can send you all the videos. I mean, we have literally about 20-25 videos about the census in Gujarati, in Hindi and English, which a lot of communities have made themselves. I can share these with you, and this particular video is also on there, and Lord Jitesh Gadia's message as well is also on there. So we can perhaps share that amongst the community.
In Gujarati will be common language. આપણે લેસ્ટરમાં તો વધારે ગુજરાતી ચાલે જ છે. અને I'll speak to refer to this about the WhatsApp, your reference number, and Iftikhar as well. People are asking for that, how to in case of whatever, but we'll talk to you later.
And we'll keep on sending you every video that is made. I mean, you know, the good thing is this is for the first time that young people from our community have come to us and said, "Hamare a video banawe che. We are proud British Indians, we are proud Hindus," and they're making all these. I'm so old, I've got white hair now, but what is TikTok? Apparently, they're making these TikTok videos about Hindu and this and that. So I'm really excited that, you know, that younger generation in the last week, 2 weeks, are making these videos. And we're also trying to speak to big spiritual leaders as well. And Praveen Bhai and Prabhu Bhai, I mentioned to you about, you know, whether there was something possible from Gigi and others, because we're also speaking to Pujya Ramesh Bhai Oza, with Morari Bapu, Swami Nayan Sanstha, Yog Vivek Swamiji is making a video. So, you know, the higher that we can get our religious saints to also make the videos to make us feel proud to be, I go back to that question again. I still think we are not at the stage where we have to stop telling people to tick the Hindu box. So we continue doing that until everybody does tick the Hindu box and the Indian box. And let's get that message out as much as we can.
So finally, may I thank you, both the speakers, all the participants who have come, all the listeners, thank you very much for that, and our entire technical team and all the parties who have helped us in this. So once again, thank you, and we will end the session here. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Ratilal Bhai.
Thank you. You're welcome, Prabhu Bhai. If you need our assistance, just give us a bell, yeah?
I will.
Thank you, Ratilal Bhai. Thank you.
Thank you, bye. Thank you.
Good night, Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.